Hello guys and welcome back to EAK TV. Today we are with Tyler. Tyler, I really want to know more about you. Tell me, where are you from? What are the projects that you are working on right now? And why did you decide to came to this event?
Yeah, so great being here. Thanks for having me. I'm actually originally from Canada, but I've been living abroad for about 10 years now. I've been living between Turkey, Russia, and India, just running different businesses and exploring the world. So right now I am a core contributor for content and comms from Crowdmuse, which is a decentralized collaboration protocol for creators. And then I'm also working on insurance for NFTs. So yeah.
How does it work? Like both Crowdmuse and NFT insurances. What do you exactly do on both of those companies?
So I'm not very technical, actually. I'm more of the people person. So I go around and do partnerships, and then also, like with Crowdmuse, for example, one of our co-stewards, he is very, very galaxy brain. So he likes to come up with very abstract concepts and very big ideas, which is also what drives our vision forward, right? But then in communicating this to the, to the general public, it kind of needs to be distilled a little bit. So I'm the guy who comes along and takes his galaxy brain ideas and distills them down into something that's a little bit more concrete and understandable for, the average person, and try to make it so, so it's digestible, right? And then in terms of NFT insurance, the team is very experienced in cybersecurity. We got a very experienced Web2 cybersecurity team with decades of experience in building bulletproof tech stacks. And also in insurance, we got a couple of a chief actuary and a chief insurance officer who have decades of experience in, talking to underwriters, right? But I'm the Web3 expert. I'm the one who comes in and talks about how we can adapt our strategy for the emerging Web3 marketplace, because obviously go-to-market strategies are much, much different in Web3 than they are in Web2. You can't just spam Google ads and hope people will buy your stuff, right? So yeah, I do that, and I also do the strategic partnerships for them.
Awesome, thank you. How do you see the Web3 industry as a whole right now?
Oh, we're deep in the darkness of the cold, harsh winter now. But honestly, I think it's good because we had to flush out some of the greed. It's a bit surprising, to be honest. I've been in here for many years, and I've never seen such insanity in the last week that I have seen with FTX. Of course, we've seen bigger crashes in the market, but just the depth that has unraveled as you look more and more into actually how deeply this was entwined with each other. So, I think that on the bright side, we have actually kind of learned our lesson that we cannot put trust into one centralized organization that has a big image. And honestly, it's quite interesting because that typically worked in Web 2, where you have partnerships, you have stadium sponsorships, you have a good reputation. It means that everyone can trust you. But now it's actually kind of working to the opposite, where we want to see transparency, we want to see proof of reserves, we want to see decentralization, collaboration, we want to see distribution of power, right? So the way I see this evolving is there will be more and more. So essentially, price is a leading indicator in this industry, and we have seen hyper-financialization of everything that we're looking at, and everything is not, it doesn't really make sense for the general public, right? So DeFi is fantastic. It's a mechanic that works really good and has huge potential, but for the general public, it's just too complex, too intimidating to get involved in. So they just blindly trust things like a 20% yield on stablecoins that's guaranteed to be safe until the stablecoin depegs and you lose your entire fortune, like happened in Luna, right? NFTs are great because they represent digital artifacts, scarcity on chain. But then only sports card collectors get that, right? Outside of the, the Web3 native crowd. So then again, it's hyper-financialization, it's extremely speculative. So the way I see it is if we really want to cross the chasm and get normal people trusting blockchain mechanisms and blockchain use cases, we need to look at things that actually make an impact in the real world. And this is where I'm getting into with Crowdmuse, is that regenerative finance is something that has the potential to actually change real-world business use cases to make them more efficient and give better collaboration opportunities.
So how does Crowdmuse work?
So basically what happens on Crowdmuse is we are creating infrastructure for the creator economy, right? And the best way to explain this is to go through our first use case, which is sustainable fashion, right? So the problem that most designers face in sustainable fashion is that if they want to start a brand, they have to go and get themselves the whole supply chain and get themselves, like a deal with a microfactory and get the supplier of the material and all of this. And most of the time, they're unable to get demand that matches the supply needs, right? So our co-steward, Mariam, she actually had a sustainable fashion company in Bangladesh, and she failed for this reason, that she was unable to keep the factories running. And this is a very common reason for failure, is that you cannot scale your demand side enough to meet the supply side, then you have to close down your factory, right? We provide infrastructure where we are basically onboarding various suppliers, right? So for example, actually in Turkey, we're in conversations with Earthist, which is a sustainable hemp collective. We have sustainable factories and microfactory collectives in India, right? We onboard them so that they're on our protocol, and then we bring in the designers who have, good reputation and have worked with various brands and have a following of their own, right? And then the suppliers, the microfactories and the brands essentially can collaborate on our protocol to create products without ever forming, the full brand. So as more suppliers come in and as more designers come in, they're able to kind of create a flywheel in which the suppliers don't have to depend on one designer to meet market demand, where multiple designers can tap into the same supplier so they can repurpose their supply and also waste less, right? So it's regenerative in the sense that we're creating less waste. We're also going to be putting all of the details on chain for, the carbon footprint, the water impact, so that we can see sustainability in a transparent way. And then also, it allows them to create, instead of like a singular supply chain, it's modular, where it's a supply web, where you don't have to waste materials. You can just send it out to different places and different purposes because there's multiple avenues of demand. It's a headless brand essentially, right? So these people get together, they create a product as an NFT, and then the smart contract automatically streams revenue back to the contributors according to how much value they put into it, right?
Okay. And how do you solve the demand problem, or this is not something that you are solving right now? Because so far, if I understood you well, you are working with designers and with suppliers. And how about the demand? Are you working to try to solve this problem? Because as I see right now, the company right now is like a marketplace connecting designers with suppliers on chain, basically. But how about the demand?
So it's two-sided, of course, right? And that's a good question, because we are focusing on onboarding the types of designers that have demand existing. So in 2023, the word of the year is going to be phygital, right? NFTs were the word last year, right? It got into the dictionary. And a lot of fashion brands are talking about phygital, which is a combination of physical and digital. Yes. And essentially it means you have an NFT that represents your claim on a physical item. Nike did this famously with Artifact, where they released a shoe, and basically you buy an NFT, and that represents your ability to claim that physical shoe, right? So a lot of these brands, they want to get into Web3. They don't know how, but they hear about it, and it's hype. So they want to get ahead of the hype train so that they're some of the pioneers in the industry, and we're providing them with the infrastructure and the mechanisms to do that. So essentially, they just bring their supporters, because, the beautiful thing about fashion is that a good designer has like a cult supporting of people who just love everything that they produce, right? It's like a good musician. When your favorite artist puts out a new CD, you buy it without thinking about it. When they come to town, you buy a concert ticket without thinking about it. Designers are the same way. So they bring in their fans. We provide their fans with an easy way to access their products. And then also we're going to provide crowdfunding mechanisms where the decentralized brand can essentially create a product as an NFT to pre-fund that product value flow. And then the most adamant supporters can buy this NFT, and then that will entitle them to a share of the royalties that are generated as they create the following iterations of that product. Kind of like the royal model with music NFTs. Yeah.
Sounds great. Sounds amazing. What are the general trends that you see in the coming future, in the near future? What are those trends that you see in the Web3 space coming with us?
So first of all, I'm a strong believer in regenerative use cases, because like I said, we need to move away from hyper-financialization in order to make blockchain implementable for the general public. That's one major thing. I don't think regenerative finance is going to be, extremely like huge valuations, but it will kind of be a slow burn that takes off and implements itself. For example, like carbon credits on the blockchain, we're still trying to figure out how to do that efficiently. Micro-lending for emerging nations is a very important use case because it provides people with access to capital, and emerging use cases will be a very big investment thesis in the coming years. And then also...
That's quite interesting because emerging countries are the ones who are suffering from not being banking yet, from not having like a good financial system yet.
Yeah.
So they are like the ones that we should target actually.
Well, the unbanked, yes. I mean, the cost of banking is just way too much, right? And it's way too inefficient. And like the SWIFT network is just, it's prehistoric. It's like dinosaur age type of infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
So we will see blockchain solutions that basically sidestep the SWIFT network and enable funneling of capital to the places that need it the most and that can benefit from it the most. And I think that that's a huge opportunity for, just like, it will create a capex boom as well, right? So we will see core infrastructure being developed in countries as that happens. So that's one reason why I think regenerative finance is a very important use case. Also energy. So Crowdmuse, our big hairy goal is to tackle energy and create co-ownership of energy assets on chain for sustainable energy solutions, like solar panel collectives and stuff like that for neighborhoods. There already are use cases of energy collectives in small communities around the world that are living off-grid. If we can actually put that off-grid use case onto the blockchain and create a way that it can be replicated and used in various different places, it could be huge, right? We won't have these kinds of energy crises and this monopoly on energy that we see in Europe, right? So it can change a lot of things. Mostly on the retail side, though, we don't expect that we could scale it, at least in the near future, to match industry demand, because that's obviously a lot of energy, right? The other thing that I think is a very big thesis is, of course, gaming, but then sustainable gaming, right? So play to earn is probably like one of the worst things we could have said for this industry because it just tells everybody you can get rich while playing video games at home, right? And it did work for a little bit of time, but then it just created like Ponzi mechanics where everyone needs new players in order to keep their in-game economy sustainable, right?
With that, you bring like the business mind people, but you basically leave alone the gamers.
Yeah, well, gamers hate blockchain for obvious reasons because we made GPUs cost prohibitive when we were doing proof of work because we were buying them all up at ridiculous prices and then selling them back to each other for even higher, right? I mean, of course, I understand why they would hate crypto people for that, but then also because they don't understand why you would need to earn while you play your favorite game. They play their favorite game out of hobby because they actually love interacting with that game. So why should they be obsessed with making money on it, right? I mean, ownership of assets in game, that's pretty cool, right? I think that that's something that we can work on, but then like the promise of earning is a very bad idea also because of security laws as well, but it's just something that we need to reiterate and look at as a sustainable way to create growth. So we bring in AAA game studios that can design high quality, fun, interactive games, and then we make ways to implement the blockchain that creates sustainable economies within those games that don't promise huge returns.
Awesome. What would you say to someone who is in Web 2 and who wants to try Web 3? Like, what's the steps or the first steps that someone can take to be part of the Web 3 ecosystem?
Well, the most important question is, what is your role that you want to enter in, right? Because a common misconception about Web 3 is that it's all just speculative, right? You tell people that you're working in crypto, they either ask you if you're a trader or if you're a miner, right? And they don't understand that it's a whole industry in itself, right? It's not even an industry, it's an infrastructure that enables multiple industries and sectors, right? So lumping it into financial services is a very big mistake. It just happens to be financialized infrastructure, right? So if you want to enter as an investor, then I would suggest, starting with something simple and small, right? Getting a little bit of Bitcoin or a little bit of Ethereum and just taking it easy and just putting money there that you don't need for the next couple of years, and you're okay with it going to zero, but you're also, exposing yourself to the opportunity of higher returns. If that happens, right? Nobody knows. Nobody can tell you when the bottom is in. Nobody can tell you what the next valuation is going to be because we're living in an era of uncertainty, and there's just been a huge shift in monetary policy and also global order that happened, right? So it's unpredictable. If you want to come in as a builder, then the best thing you can do is just go crawling around and trying to find projects that coincide with your values. So the beautiful thing about DAOs is that you can come in, contribute without being committed to the cause, see if these are the types of people that you vibe with. If you don't like them, you don't have like a contract, right? The problem with Web2 companies is that we sign contracts and we have multi-year commitments, and it's hard to exit one and enter another one unless you're in a very high demand profession. Whereas with DAOs, you can go in, you can contribute, you can throw in some code, you can do some writing, right? Yeah, you can test it, and it's also not technical either, right? You can be a marketing guy, you can be a content creator, you can do all kinds of different types of jobs, regardless of your knowledge and experience, and then you just kind of like feel it out and you see, oh, I really like these people, I support this cause, I want to get deeper into it. So then you start building relationships and you start going deeper and creating like stronger ties with them, and then they see that you're serious, you're not here just for fun, and they create longer term commitments with you. That's kind of the beauty of the decentralized autonomous organization, is that it creates the freedom of choice. It's kind of difficult to manage from a management perspective because you have people who kind of come in and go, right? There's a little bit of lack of commitment, right? But I think that we're still trying to figure out, because we need reputation on chain. And once we establish, for example, like soul-bound CVs of NFTs that represent our previous experience and contributions, then that will allow more credibility and better trust.
That's super interesting as well. Like the Souls coins, that's super interesting.
It's exciting.
Yes, it's exciting. How people can find you, like your company and yourself?
So I'm on Twitter, Ty Scharf, Tyscharf, and I am contributor for Crowdmuse. So you can also find Crowdmuse on Twitter as well. And yeah.
That's it. Awesome. Thank you very much, Tyler, and thank you guys for this time. See you in the next chapter. Bye-bye.